Welcome back to Comic Source. My name is Billy, and today we're going to be talking about the WandaVision finale, which I feel terrible every time I say this, but I am very disappointed by this episode. This is not to say that it's bad. It is by no means bad, but I am very disappointed. But we start off the episode in the same situation that we ended off in the last episode, where Agatha had the kids out in the street, and it's very clear that she's trying to absorb Wanda's power just like she did in the witch trials, if you want to call them that, from the previous episode. And then that's when the negative vision pulls up to set, which prompts what I believe to be a clunky introduction when the hex vision pulls up, which their conversation further down the line in the episode is probably my favorite part in the episode, but just his introduction into them fighting felt weird to me. And then that's when we get an introduction into the most disappointing part of the episode, and that's Ralph. But of course, we don't know why yet. And then that takes us to Hayward's kind of plan of what he's trying to do. You know, he's just trying to sway public opinion to make people believe that Wanda did indeed steal the vision. And then that's when I gotta say, I'm gonna pull up a screenshot just to show what I'm talking about, but that security guard behind Jimmy needs to be fired immediately. I don't know how he didn't see him steal that phone. And then we're back in the town square, and then that's when we get the confirmation that the book that Agatha has is the Darkhold. Which, like I said, we have seen it a couple times previously in the MCU, but it's kind of underground. It was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Previous to this show, Marvel really has shown no respect to continuation between shows and movies. So that's why I assume they had no problem bringing it back and bringing it differently than it was before. And then that's when Agatha brings out Dottie's real personality, which is Sarah, and then she comes up, has a conversation with Wanda. And this is kind of the beginning of my gripe with the ending of this episode, but I'll go into that later. And then that's when we get the confirmation that they brought in Evan Peters for no reason other than a dick joke, which is kind of annoying. Even just as a bare joke, it's not even funny. Never mind the fact that he's a character that people love. And then that's when we get the shot when the kids can see the commotion that's going on, and then they have to go outside, which I believe that was going to be the intro to a different scene that was cut from the show, but I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then Agatha lifts the hold on all of the constituents of the hex, and then they all start to surround Wanda and give her just a piece of their mind. And then this causes her to try and open the hex, but then once she realizes that's going to take away what she wants, she closes it again, which is just another reason that she is actually, from a certain point of view, she is the antagonist. But then at the end of the episode, she's going to get what she wants. I don't know if I'm just being weird, but this is a problem for me. And then we get the nice little Incredibles style team up with the whole family, prepped and ready to fight. And then we get the start of my favorite dialogue in this episode. And that's when the Hex Vision contradicts the Negative Vision, and they have a really in-depth conversation about Thesis. And then we get a scene that kind of just exists, in my opinion. I didn't really think that this was cool or anything, just because it felt like an advertisement for Captain Marvel 2. It didn't feel like it belonged in this show. And that is the scene where Monica comes in to help the boys when the boys were taking care of the military. And then, of course, right after that, that's when we get Darcy coming out of absolutely nowhere to take out Hayward. His character doesn't even matter. And then we get that whole in-depth conversation between the Hex Vision and Negative Vision about the boat of Thesis, and whether if the rot from the wood was completely free, is that still the old bolt of Thesis, or is that just something new and rebuilt? And then, of course, that's just directly parallel to their situation, which is why I love that scene. I really did love that scene. But I'm curious to see where that Vision's going to go. Where is his first place that he's going to want to go? And where are we going to see him again? Because I doubt that it's just going to be, the regular Vision that we know and love, but he still has his memories and, his operating system, all of that. I'm curious to see if we'll see him in Avengers movies or where exactly we're going to be able to see him, because I doubt we're going to be getting a Vision show anytime soon. And then we get a flashback to the filmmaking technique that they used in Age of Ultron, where Wanda was frame skipping. I doubt that that's even a real term, but it's just what it looks like to me. And she walks up behind her and gives her a little red wiggly woo and then projects her to her oldest memory. But it's not just her oldest memory, it is also her greatest fear. And then it backfires when all of the witches that were on the ground detect that she was the Scarlet Witch. They pull a literal Uno reverse card on her. And this scene was just to confirm to Wanda from somebody else rather than coming out of Agatha's mouth that she is the Scarlet Witch. And then Wanda D1 form tackles her back into the present, and then they have their big sky battle. Which, I'm indifferent about this scene, just because it is very cool that Wanda learned from her past mistakes, and she was able to set up the runes so that she was the only one that was able to use magic, and that she was able to trick Agatha into thinking that she won. But when you have two people that have reality-bending powers, and it's just reduced to magical output coming together in the middle that, it's just, I don't know, I feel like there was some missed potential with this scene, just a little bit. And then we get confirmation that the Mind Stone was showing her future, the height of her powers. When we get probably the most important shot in MCU history, because now we're starting to get into the real stuff. Before, at least at the beginning, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and when I say Spider-Man, I mean 2002, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Everything is meant to be a little bit grounded, just because, at least before, nobody respected comic book type movies. They always thought that they were kiddish and stuff like that. And now that the public opinion is swaying against that notion, we're able to have more comic booky stuff like WandaVision and Scarlet Witch's character in general, where she has reality warping powers. This is revolutionary. And I have to include it. It's much better than the Dark Phoenix, which was just an absolute disaster. But I do see similarities between the Dark Phoenix and Jean Grey, as well as this scene here with Scarlet Witch becoming the Scarlet Witch. I just personally feel that this one was done correctly. And then we get everybody on the ground, and I just want to take this moment to say that her suit, Wanda's suit, looks fantastic. It definitely has a little ode to Michael Fassbender's Magneto, but overall I think it looks great. Because the big problem with her suit in the comics and old school comic book suits in general is that they were written by disgusting old men and they're all just revealing, and this was just a great suit that was none of that, just none of that creepy shit. And then we get the bye-bye Hex scene. And while I feel that this group of scenes where, they tuck the kids into bed, where Billy might have even known what's going on because he can read minds and he can see the future. And then we get the scene where Vision's going to be saying goodbye. And this is just another scene where we know Elizabeth Olsen deserves an award immediately. But I can't help but feel that this type of happy ending, while she's only had pain throughout the entirety of the MCU, I know this, just specifically within the realm of this show, I don't feel like that elongated happy ending is something that she deserved when there's 30 people outside, 30 plus people that just begged her to end their suffering, and she doesn't really care about them at all. At least they weren't able to relay that she actually cares where they're at right now. Yeah, she didn't want to choke them to death because she's not a murderer, but this just felt odd to me. And then on top of that, Vision's goodbye felt like a see you later rather than an actual goodbye, which just devalues his 19 million deaths in my opinion. And then that's what Wanda, after the house disappears and then we're back on the lot, she puts her hood up and then goes back to talk to Monica, which brings me back to what I said before about the 30 plus people. Why are you apologizing to Monica when there's 30 plus people that just begged you to kill them behind you? But I have to reiterate the fact this episode is not bad by any means. It's not bad. I'm just disappointed when the first 8 episodes were such a pure 10 out of 10, and this episode was just a little bit disappointing for me. But then that's when we get into the post-credit scenes, which the first post-credit scene, honestly, waste of my time. It might have been a little bit better or a little bit cooler if they brought in Nick Fury himself and he was just sitting in the back of that auditorium like that. But why did you bring Monica into a room with a scroll that we don't recognize to talk to somebody that we know she's already talked to before and we definitely know she's going to talk to in the future? You know what I mean? We're not learning anything from this scene. And then the second post-credit scene where Wanda is drinking tea and she's studying the Darkhold. This one is a little bit different just because it's nice to see that Wanda has that same learning technique as Doctor Strange, where he was sleeping and reading at the same time. But again, it's the same thing as the last post-credit scene where we're not learning anything. This is something that we knew. We knew Wanda was going to get a hold of the Darkhold and she was going to continue to try and learn her magic. The only prediction that I have for this scene is that she's going to try and, as Agatha said earlier, once a spell is casted, it cannot be recasted, changed, or anything like that. She's going to learn how to cast the spell correctly, and then that's probably going to be the conflict in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And then to come back to the beginning scene where the kids realized what was going on outside and they needed to run outside, I believe that this was going to be the intro to a scene that was deleted where Monica, Jimmy, and the kids were going to go into Agatha's basement and steal the Darkhold for Wanda, and then they were going to get attacked by Senor Scratchy. And honestly, I think that would have been really cool, rather than them just standing in the street using their powers for 2 seconds just to show that they have them and then nothing. But because of COVID rescheduling, the VFX was incomplete and that scene was scrapped. But overall, even though I had my gripes with this last episode, I still enjoyed the series as a whole very much. This is definitely a top tier Marvel project that they've put out, and I really can't wait to see where they're going to go next. This was definitely a great opening to Phase 4. Let me know what y'all thought in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace. But before I go, I want to show y'all this meme real quick. I know it was plucked out of a scene where it's like really heartwarming, but I just found this really hilarious and I wanted to show it to you guys. Peace.